I was 26 years old and I had nothing to my name except for about $300,000 in debt. What's up everyone, David here, and welcome back to Free to Be. Now I've been wanting to create this video for you guys for a while, but honestly I've just been putting it off. But I finally decided that, you know what, I need to share this story with you. So today we're going to be talking about how I ended up with almost $300,000 of debt by the time I was 26 years old. And the goal is not to have a pity party for any of my decisions in life, but it's kind of just a little bit of a heads up to anyone who's thinking about doing the same things I was doing, or just informational in terms of whether you want to do this or go down the same path that I did. These are just things you should know before you do that. And before I go into this story, if you're new to the channel, take a moment and just hit the subscribe button down below for me and turn on those notifications, because we talk about financial literacy on this channel, and I truly strive to bring you guys valuable content on a weekly basis. Also, this goes without saying, but if you're not new and returning, I really do truly appreciate your support, so thanks for coming back. Okay, so here it goes. I was 22 and I had just graduated college. And I was happy too, because unlike a lot of people that I knew at the time, I was graduating with a relatively low amount of debt. I think it was somewhere around $15,000 of debt that I had accumulated through my 4 years of school. And that was obviously the student loans. I also had about $1,500 to $2,000 of credit card debt as well. But all said and done, I mean, $17,000 for 4 years of college is not a bad place to be if you're just starting out your life. And so I was really happy. I was really excited and optimistic about the position I was in starting my life at 22. So I know right now you're already thinking, how did you only have about $17,000 of debt at 22? And over the next 4 years, you're telling me that that ballooned up to $300,000? Yeah, it did. And that's because I had decided that I was going to start law school the following fall after I had graduated undergrad. And if you know anything about graduate school in this country, in the United States, you know that it's not cheap. And so in the interest of being transparent with you guys, my law school was approximately $35,000 a year for tuition and books, plus another $25,000 for living expenses. So about $60,000 a year. It was going to cost me $60,000 a year for the next 3 years of my life, from 22 to 25. But I thought to myself that this was going to be a worthwhile investment because it was going to go ahead and launch me into the career that I wanted to pursue and put me in a position where I could earn higher amount of wages as I progressed through my career. So if you're following my math, that basically totals to another $180,000 over the next 3 years. So from 22 to 25, that's another $180,000 tacked on to the $17,000 that I had before, and now we're right about $200,000. So just a few $1,000s shy of $200,000 at the age of 25. But wait, what about that extra 100? So you're saying that between 25 and 26, you gained another $100,000 worth of debt? You got it. Well, not exactly. I mean, I did have that extra $100,000 of debt when it was all said and done by the time I was 26, but it was accumulated throughout the process as well as in that 25 to 26 year of my life. So the first things first is I went to law school out of state. So that involved me moving. And I didn't really factor that into anything that I was planning at the time because I did not know how much it was going to cost to move out of state. I had never lived out of state before, but it was around $3,500 between renting a truck, getting an apartment, putting down, the down payment for that apartment or the security deposit, if you will, moving stuff, purchasing new things for your apartment, all that stuff. That came out to about $3,500. And I did not have $3,500, so that went on a credit card. Now, over the next 3 years while I was in law school, I really did try to live a tight lifestyle where I wasn't just spending freely because I knew that I was on a fixed income. But it was hard. I mean, there were things that I wanted to buy, life that I wanted to enjoy here and there, so I did rack up some additional credit card debt while I was in law school. So all said and done, I had about $2,000 of credit card debt before going to law school. It cost around another $3,000, let's say $3,500 worth of credit card debt to then move down to go to law school, about almost the same moving back up. And throughout law school, supplementing my income with credit card here and there, I ended law school with about $30,000 in credit card debt. But that's not where the fun stops, because my second year of law school, I decided that I wanted to enroll in some summer classes, specifically because one of my heroes, Ralph Nader, was teaching a course that I wanted to take, and in order to do so, I had to enroll in a whole semester's worth of classes in the summer. So what I did was I enrolled in 3 extra classes, which cost about another $10,000 in terms of tuition money. And that's a loan that I had to take out as a private loan that rolled into the 180 that was already there for the 3 full years. So your cost is now around 190 for law school, plus about $30,000 in credit card debt that I had, and the $15,000 from before. Now we're around the $235,000, $240,000 range before I had even started working. And just like any good infomercial, I wish I could say, yeah, that's all. I had $245,000 of debt and that was it. But no, wait. There's more. So after I graduated, I obviously had to go and take the bar exam, and I had to sustain some kind of livable means for myself while I was doing that, because it takes about 2 months to study for the exam, and you have to take a course to do it, and it costs money to register. So that involved another $10,000 loan. Now this loan was also a private loan, so the interest rate was going to be a little bit higher than all the other loans that I had taken before. So now I was close to around $260,000 graduating law school at the age of 25 and taking the bar exam. Okay, so you're thinking $260,000, you're finished with law school, you finished the bar exam, you're ready to go start working. What was the problem? Well, unfortunately for me, I happened to graduate law school in probably one of the worst job markets in the history of America. I mean, it was bad. So it wasn't like, I took the exam and I started working the next day, paying off my debt. It took a few months for me to find full-time work, which was horrible because what was happening here was interest was starting to accumulate on all my debt. Specifically, the high interest rate on that consumer debt on the credit cards, that was rapidly growing, really. And so over the next 8 months, I really was trying to find full-time work the best I could. I did do some work here and there to supplement my income and just be able to live, but I really wasn't able to find full-time work until probably around 8.5 months after I graduated from law school. And it didn't really help that I had decided to move back home to the Washington, D.C. area, and I was targeting Washington, D.C. as my job market of choice. And in that time, there were more attorneys in Washington, D.C. than there were children under the age of 18. I'm gonna let that one just sink in for a second. So after a long search, 8.5 months after graduating law school, I was able to find full-time work. But unfortunately for me, by that time, my student loan had ballooned up to almost $250,000 with another almost $50,000 in credit card debt. So right there, I was finally at that $300,000 number I was telling you about when I had just started working full-time. But my mission was clear. I knew what I wanted to do and I knew how I needed to get there. So I just focused all my efforts first and foremost, for the first basically 1.5 years I was working, to pay off that consumer debt, because those interest rates were 18 to 25%, and that just wasn't going to fly. And I actually made a video, it was one of the first few videos I made on this channel, about how I was able to pay off $50,000 of debt relatively quickly, and that's talking about this experience. So I had just landed a job and I knew that I needed to get rid of this credit card debt as fast as possible. And in order to do that, what I ended up doing was consolidating my large government loan and as many of the loans as I could as possible, and deferring them for about 1.5 years. I think it actually ended up being deferring them for about 2 years so that I could focus my energy on paying down these credit cards. So if we fast forward about 9 years, brings us to today, but basically about 9 years since I graduated law school. And what is my current balance in terms of debt? Well, I'll be happy to tell you that I don't have any consumer debt. I actually was able to keep that down, pay that down, and just get rid of it, really. I have maybe like a few $100s on one credit card, and that's about it. But my student loans are just as high as ever, and actually are now right around $300,000. That's right. I actually didn't make any real ground in terms of paying off that overall debt number I had at 26. It's still the exact same number. Now, it's not comprised of that high interest consumer debt like it was before, but the interest rate is still pretty crazy on the student loan. And given the size of the loan and the size of the interest rate, it's really a tough obstacle to overcome without making, $3,000 a month payments on this loan. Now, I don't want to paint it like this loan amount couldn't have been any lower than it is today. It for sure could have been lower because I did get bonuses here and there, raises, promotions, things like this. But I also had other things going on in my life that I wanted to experience. And those were all things that I didn't finance, I paid for in cash because I wanted to live and I wanted to experience those other things in life. And part of me wishes I could tell you that this situation was unique to me and that I was the only one going through it, but unfortunately that's not the case. There are many people out there, many Americans who struggle with the student loan crisis that we're facing right now because these interest rates are not capped. So I'll tell you right now, my student loan, like I said, the balance is around $300,000, but my interest rate is almost 7%. And I've tried to refinance this to a lower percentage. It has just been impossible to do given the size of this loan. So just to do some quick math for you, 7% interest rate means you're paying about $21,000 in interest a year, which is about $2,000 a month of just interest payments. So imagine how much more money I have to pay just to work down the principal on this student loan. I'd almost have to make a $5,000 a month payment on this in order to start making some real progress in pulling this down to a manageable amount. Now, should the student loans be capped? I think so, and there should definitely be some change, but there isn't any right now. So this is just some part of my life that I'm going to be dealing with, for the foreseeable future, and I'm not going to let it prevent me from reaching my other goals in life. So the approach that I'm taking currently is to make sure that I make enough payments to cover the interest on an annual basis. And then as I come across, extra money throughout the year, whether it's a bonus, a tax return, whatever the case may be, I make lump sum payments to try to drive down that principal as much as I can. But I can't help to think that we really need student loan reform more now than ever. I mean, look, it's kind of unconscionable for me to end up paying over $400,000, $500,000 for an education that really cost me, for the education, I don't want to even factor in the cost of living, about $105,000. This makes no sense. So let's say even my principal loan amount was $190,000. Why does it make sense for me to end up paying $500,000 for that education? It doesn't. The student loan interest rates should never be higher than 2%. I mean, it is just ridiculous. Furthermore, beyond the reform of the student loans, there needs to be some changes in terms of tuition. Do you know that just 30 years ago, in today's dollars, a year of tuition, the average year of tuition in this country, in the United States, was about $3,300. Today, the average cost of tuition, in the country is about $15,000. Think about that. And since 2001, the average wages in this country have only gone up $1. So really, we need education reform more than ever. It goes beyond the student loan crisis. We need tuition reform. We need to keep these schools accountable. They shouldn't be able to increase their tuition every year at this crazy rate. Because I'll tell you that my first year, my tuition at my school was about $5,000 less than my last year. So the point I'm just trying to make here, without getting too political, is something needs to change because we are at a bit of an impasse here. And this crisis is only going to get worse. Anyways, guys, that's really all I wanted to talk about in today's video. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to let you know where I was coming from and what drives me to push myself to financial independence, capture my experience and let you know my progress as things go on. I will continue making update videos as long as I make videos on this channel and let you know how I'm progressing with my 15 years of planning to pay this student loan off and all of my progress really. And I'll continue bringing you guys good information and hopefully you find all of this helpful. And that's it, guys. That's all I had for today's video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button down below. Leave me a comment if you have a question about my story, about your own journey, whatever the case may be there. Just let me know down below. If you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, go ahead and email me. My email is in the About section of my channel page, so definitely check that out. Feel free to email me. I'll be as responsive as I can. And if you haven't done so, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications, and we'll see you next time.